Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Alliance for Community Trees webcast session. My name is Sarah, and I'm going to be your host of the session this afternoon. It is a crisp one where we are in Washington, D.C. Hope that everyone is enjoying their January so far and having a good start to their new year. This the Alliance Community Tree for Community Trees webcast series is a monthly webcast held at the lunch hour. The trainings leverage local successes by amplifying to a larger audience two model organizations' methods, materials, and approaches. Sessions last no more than 1 hour, with two presenters speaking on the same topic from slightly different perspectives. This session is being recorded. Most state landscape architecture boards require a certificate of completion, which we are happy to provide after the session upon request. This is a program of Alliance for Community Trees, the only national nonprofit dedicated to serving grassroots organizations and municipalities that plant and care for trees where over 90% of Americans live, in cities and towns. These webcast sessions continue to be free for AC Trees members and cost $55 per non-member participant. Not a member yet or haven't renewed? Membership is calendar year. Visit actrees.org and click Join Now to be part of our alliance. Today's session is Creating Win-Win Internships Part 2. Meaningful internships integrate the interests of students and recent graduates with the goals of the organization they serve. Cities and grassroots tree organizations are creatively engaging interns through specific initiatives and projects that improve urban forest management. The days of interns serving as coffee gophers and copiers are long gone and have been replaced with opportunities for service learning through positions like inventory assessors and site plan designers. Whether your organization is identifying urban forest threats or looking to engage more volunteers, partnering with universities to hire the right interns creates a win-win for everyone. Our first presenter is Elise Shadler. She is a community outreach professional with the University of Vermont Extension and the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program. Raised in the Midwest, Elise received her Bachelor's of Arts in Anthropology from Indiana University before joining the AmeriCorps National Civilian Community Corps, or on the inside they call it NCCC. She spent the next 3 years directing a community-based tree planting program in Camden, New Jersey, with another AC Trees member organization, the New Jersey Tree Foundation. Eventually, Elise pursued her graduate degree in natural resources from the Rubenstein School of Environment and Natural Resources at the University of Vermont. She quickly fell for the land, people, and flavor of Vermont and is happy to be able to continue her development as a professional urban forester. When not working, Elise participates in seasonal outdoor activities, community events, and spending as much time as possible with good friends, family, and pets that fill her life. And Elise joins us now. Welcome.
Thanks, Sarah. All right. So I am, in fact, Elise Shadler, and I am, in fact, in Burlington, Vermont. In this short presentation, I just wanted to tell all the participants a little bit about how my program has been increasing our capacity to assist communities throughout the state, specifically by partnering with higher ed institutions and their service learning and internship programs. Okay, so, no, there we go. Okay, so since this is, I don't know where everyone's coming from, I thought I'd give you a little context about our little state. We are 49th in the country in population and 43rd in total land area. Our state population is approximately 625,000, which is a very large number, I know. And about 37% of our state population lives in the approximately 2% of land that's designated as urban. The map that is on the left here highlights those small urban areas and is color-coded based on existing urban tree canopy cover. And you'll see that the largest concentration of urban land is colored in orange, and it's up in along Lake Champlain, up on the northwest side of the state in Burlington, and its surrounding communities in Chittenden County. So Burlington is not only where I live and where my office is, but also the location of the main campus of the University of Vermont, or UVM, which is our main partner in student engagement activities. So most of the projects and internships that I'll be talking about in this talk are in collaboration with UVM, but we also work with other institutions across the state, which some of them are listed on this slide. So our state is very small, and we are pretty rural, and we are about 78% forested, but we definitely have our fair share of challenges in the field of urban forestry. Of the 250 communities in Vermont, only 4 of them have a paid arborist on staff, which means that most of the tree care and planning for urban forestry throughout the state often falls on public works departments or road crews or parks departments or cemetery commissions or mostly untrained staff. There are very few communities that have explicit budgets for tree planting, care, and stewardship in the state, and urban and community forestry stewardship largely falls on grassroots efforts. Many of these efforts are spearheaded by retired volunteers, which seem to be a lot of in our state, which we love. And our state urban and community forestry program is a collaborative initiative of the Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation and the University of Vermont Extension. And we have a small staff of 4. We support about 100 communities annually through technical, financial, and educational programming. And one of the ways that we have been able to accomplish this level of support is by engagement with college students. Since 2012, we have worked with over 700 students in over 20 different service learning courses to directly assist over 25 different communities in their forestry efforts. And we've also, since the fall of 2013, had 11 paid interns all from University of Vermont to work on specific projects with us. So I'm going to talk specifically about some of the specific partnerships and projects that kind of highlight this engagement, but as an overview, I act as the liaison for the majority of our student projects and internships, and this slide just shows a snapshot of the database that I use to keep a running kind of measure on our student projects. And this slide you can't really see very well, but we also keep a running list of all of our student projects on our website, vtcommunityforestry.org, and it's easy to get to. You go to Get Involved in Then Higher Education, and we keep a list of all the projects and links to the actual products that were developed through the project, so you can go on there and peruse and see what kind of projects are being done in Vermont. So as I mentioned, UVM is our main higher education partner, and within UVM, the Rubenstein School of Environment and Natural Resources is the academic unit with which we most naturally align, and I happen to be a graduate of the Rubenstein School. So when I came on board with the UCF program in 2012, it was pretty seamless for us to make the necessary connections and changes in our programming to be involved with student projects more intentionally and directly. The Rubenstein School has a really strong commitment to experiential learning, and along with all of the extracurricular and internship opportunities that they really promote students doing in the Rubenstein School, many of the core required courses include a service learning project component. So for the past 3 years, we've worked with the very first required course in the school, which is called Natural History and Field Ecology, and we've also worked with the very last required course, which is called Environmental Problem Solving, and we've been a community partner in both of those classes. With the 200 freshmen in the introductory natural resource course, we teach about urban forestry and work on basic forest assessment skills through a long-term iTree Eco study for the city of Burlington, and this is the the picture on the right is a freshman learning how to use a clinometer. And then with the seniors, we pitch a number of projects every semester, and the students end up actually self-selecting which project they want to work on. We've done town green tree inventories. We've had students help organize Arbor Day events. We've had students help kind of our community grassroots volunteer groups work on social media and outreach. And as seen above, the two students in the picture here conducted a study of the state-owned forest behind our State House in Montpelier, and they communicated the results to the public and to our state legislators, which was really a cool project. This slide highlights some of the projects we've done with students around invasive forest pests. So we fortunately do not yet have emerald ash borer or Asian longhorn beetle in the state, but we are actively engaged in working with communities to plan for the arrival of the pests. So we have worked with a number of different classes to conduct ash and maple health assessments in towns. We've done ash inventories on street trees. We've done backroads ash surveys with students, and last year we enlisted the help of students from UVM to get the word out about our first ever Ash Tree Awareness Week, which happened in late April. It was really successful, and yes, sometimes you do still need to wear a winter hat in late April in Vermont, as seen in the photo here, which is unfortunate but true. So this project, the Vermont Village Green Initiative, was a great example of a really student-run effort. This was an idea that we had been bouncing around with a colleague from our state's Agency of Commerce and Community Development and the state downtown designation program for a while, but nobody had any funding to put behind it. So we hired an intern in 2013 to coordinate this student-run effort to catalog and assess and bring attention to all the benefits and the values of town greens. So looking at the cultural, historical, environmental assets of these places. And students have really latched onto this idea. I think a lot of students, especially from Vermont, really love the idea of studying the value of their town greens. So we've had students inventory all trees on 18 town greens of Vermont using iTree. We've had students go out and poll citizens about the value of their town greens and write it up in a report. We've had students develop landscape plans for the greens and ideas for how to enhance those spaces. And we had a student intern end up mapping 154 village greens and plotting them on a GIS map. So this project has really great momentum, and it's all because of students, and we're really excited to keep working on it and keep thinking of new ideas and hopefully get some funding behind it at some point. We received a grant a couple years ago from the Forest Service to, among other things, conduct public tree inventories in 20 priority communities in Vermont, and we're halfway through. We've done 10 of them, but 6 of them have been completed using interns from UVM's Land Stewardship Program, which is a summer internship program. So we partner with the program to conduct these inventories, and then we communicate the results to the towns and work with the towns to develop management plans. And these interns are mostly natural resource and forestry students that come from all over the country. And they're generally really good with tree ID, which is important, as I'm sure most of you know, for conducting tree inventories. And so we train them on our iPad-based inventory system, and they just fly through the data collection. So we've been really happy with this partnership. We do pay the program, but and so the interns are paid, but it's definitely really an awesome opportunity for them to get this hands-on experience, as well as getting some data for these communities. And they also, in addition to looking to identifying the trees that are actually there in the towns, we have them identify potential tree planting locations within the public right-of-way as well. And then finally, just want to talk a little bit about our interns. So those are some of the student projects and partnerships with internship programs that we are engaged in, but we also have our own urban and community forestry interns. We received a grant from the Forest Service in 2013 to hire paid student interns. And we are continuing to stretch the funding and hope to get more soon, because this is really something that we've found is really valuable for us to be investing in. So our 11 interns have really, really helped us increase our capacity, and they latch on to a specific project and help it move forward. Some of the specific projects, just to kind of move clockwise around this slide, starting in the top left. Sylvia was an intern that helped us organize, or actually took on the entire project of organizing UVM's first official Arbor Day as a designated Tree Campus USA. And she also did outreach to other campuses in the state to get the word out about the Tree City or Tree Campus USA program, because UVM and Middlebury are the only two campuses that are currently designated. Andrea is the next one on the slide, is a graduate student, and she's one of our
Hello, Elise.
current interns, and she's been really, really helpful in editing inventory reports and yeah. Sarah?
Oh, great. There's a little bit of a delay. We
We
had
good?
you cop out a little. There was a drop out a little bit, but now you're back. So,
Okay. Okay. Great. Great. So should I start over on this slide?
oh, you're good. So we just got to the point past where you were talking about the. You can continue. You can continue.
Okay, great. I'm going to continue. All right. So these are some of our interns, and I'm just going over some of the projects that they've worked on. So we've had interns work on editing reports and case studies, and working on doing interviews for case studies that we're working on. We have a graduate intern that's working on developing a management plan guide for Vermont communities. We had Sam up in the right corner helped revive our Vermont Big Trees program, which was kind of lulled for a couple years. Down on the bottom row from the left, Amy is our Village Greens intern, so she's the one that coordinated that whole Village Greens project, and she's continuing to work with us this semester to really communicate the results of that project to communities in Vermont. Mandy in the middle worked with a specific community outside of Burlington to develop a draft management plan and help them recruit members for their new tree board. And then Leslie on the bottom right was my right-hand woman last spring in working with communities to prepare for inventory season. So that's just kind of how, those are some examples of how we've used interns. And so to kind of wrap up my section, I just want to talk about why it matters for us to be doing this work. We feel that it's not only beneficial to us and being able to support communities better, but we also feel that by connecting students with our volunteers and connecting students with municipal employees and professionals in the field, and also by connecting faculty at UVM and other institutions with communities, we feel that stewardship for urban forests is really enhanced, and that many of these students who are actually traditional forestry students or just natural resource students in general and haven't ever really had any experience in a profession where they're understanding how trees play a role in a community, we're exposing these young environmental leaders to the field. For the majority of the classes we work with, I give a presentation about urban forestry prior to the actual field work, so that they're getting some content and then they're getting an experience. And to wrap it up, just some lessons learned. First and foremost, planning is, as with anything, is really important for us, and we try to be really intentional about planning for each semester. We have a running wish list of projects at any given time, and we can pull from that list depending on which classes are being offered when. And as a team, we have a solid understanding of which of these projects are really vital to our programming and are going to need more supervision, and which projects are more kind of the pie in the sky projects that we're just excited to get someone to take on. And having one person in charge of all of this student engagement has worked really well for us, because I can have my finger on what's going on, and I know the faculty, and I have a pretty accurate read on student skill and interest level. Being adaptable is also really important, because especially with large student projects or large groups of students, you never know how group dynamics are going to play out or how many times you'll be able to meet with students because of their conflicting class schedules, etc. And feedback has been something we've really focused on, making sure to get feedback from students and from the community partners and from the faculty about how it is to work with us and to what we can do to improve the projects. We found that it's really important for students to feel like they can work on a project that has a start, middle, and end. So that within the span of a semester, so that's usually 15 weeks. So that's a really important design element that we focus on, and that there are really well-established objectives so the students can feel like they actually completed something, and that a lot of the students we work with and our interns really want to feel ownership over projects. So I've found that having a really open and honest conversation with them up front about what kind of level of support and hand-holding that they want to be most successful is really effective. I try to build relationships with the faculty, and if you don't have any relationships with faculty, I think starting with a student services office or an internship coordinator to identify who those faculty could be would be a good step. And then finally, there's just this thing about connection to place that that I haven't fully wrapped my head around that I include in this slide, but because I think about all the times that we debrief after a project and ask the students what the most valuable part of the project was, and many of the students say that it's about feeling more connected to the place where they're studying and feeling more connected to Vermont and feeling wonderful because they're able to contribute to the community. So that's kind of my side of this, and I just will say as a final note that largely because of our program's experience the past couple years working with students through internships and service learning classes, the state of Vermont, the Agency of Natural Resources signed on last fall to co-fund a coordinator position with the Rubenstein School at UVM. So there's now a fabulous woman in this position who spends her time supporting and aligning research and internships and service projects between the Rubenstein School and the state agency to match those needs. It's very exciting, and we're really happy to have been involved in making that happen. So I will release my airtime, and I'm wrapped up, but I encourage you to check out our website, vtcommunityforestry.org, and if you have any questions, you can shoot me an email too.
Thanks so much, Elise. That was phenomenal. That was so great. If you have questions for Elise, please type your questions into the questions box. Oh, there we go. Please type your questions into the questions box on your GoToWebinar control panel. Just wanted to state that. And as the questions come in, you had some really awesome points, and just want to start out with one of the last pieces you mentioned about sustaining the urban and community forestry programs internship program was about funding and about how you're hoping that you can continue to stretch the funding and make sure that this program is ongoing, because there's so much great work being done via the program. And so I wondered if you had any thoughts about how to sustainably fund the program, if you've had any private sector interest in maybe any partnerships with like a nonprofit partner statewide, like the council, or like another organization maybe local to Burlington that could help get the word out and get people who want to help to be able to donate, because I'm not sure that folks can donate to state government.
Yeah, right. We have started to have those conversations about potentially looking at some of the tree care industries in town to see if they would sponsor internships with us. The funding that we do have that has supported these 11 interns so far was it was left over from a fire season a couple years ago from state and private forestry, and they basically, some people might be also had gone out for this funding, at least for the Northeast area, but there was like a week. It was like, we want to give this to programs to support interns, and you have a week to put. It might have only been like a couple days, and so we were like, oh, we want to do that. We definitely want to do that, and we hadn't really worked with interns before, and so we ended up. Getting that funding, which was great, and I'm really hoping that some opportunity like that comes along again. And we have just been really intentional about keeping track of, making sure the students are keeping track and really using that money as well as we can. But another thing, when we're thinking about writing for redesign grants, or I guess they're not called redesign anymore, but writing grants for Forest Service, we have, we are keeping that in mind, that we do like to use students to help us accomplish these projects. So I'm hopeful and confident that it's important enough to us that we'll make it work.
Awesome. We have a question coming in. How many interns do you have per manager?
So I am the only manager of the interns, and between 1 and 3 per semester. 3 was a lot. I had in the fall last year, and there were 3 very different projects, and that I do try to meet with my interns weekly. So that was a lot. Right now I have 2, and that seems to be really manageable for me. But I think 2 is a good number. I probably wouldn't recommend having more than 2 per manager.
Great. We also have another question coming in. How long would you say on average it's been between the time that you do some outreach to a local institution and then the time that you're able to, acquire the intern to implement your project?
Yeah, so I think this relates to service learning projects too. And I know that UVM uses the term service learning maybe more than some other institutions, but essentially any community project that students would be doing. It's definitely a dance, I think, because often faculty write a syllabus without really thinking about reaching out to the community partner, and then all of a sudden it's like the middle of the semester and they ask you for a project, or you hear about it through word of mouth. So one of the things that I've done is within Chittenden County, in our county, all the different schools or departments that I think we would align well with, I check out their schedule of courses for, if I was thinking about fall 2015, I would go back to look at fall 2014 and see, just look and see if the course title might pique your interest, to see if there might be something that could align, and then I will reach out to those faculty members that taught the class last year, and if the chances are they're teaching it again the next year.
Hello, Elise. Do we have you on? Sorry for a little bit of technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to work on getting Elise back. She's going to join us for questions at the end of the session, and we're going to move forward with our second presenter, and his name is Robert Seaman, and he is representing Baton Rouge Green. He joined Baton Rouge Green as a program director in 2012. And Robert's educational background focused on landscape architecture and forest resource management. Professionally, Robert's career has always revolved around trees. He worked for the USDA Forest Service. He's also been on the private sector, running a small forest management company called in Telluride, Colorado. And He's also worked as a professional arborist. Robert has been ISA certified since 2005 and a Louisiana state licensed arborist since 2010. And Robert joins us now. Welcome.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
We can. You're with us.
All right, great. So at Baton Rouge Green, we don't have a secret formula or anything for dealing with our interns. It's basically these three steps right in front of you is get the right intern, focus on giving each intern the right experience, and simply repeat that process with every new intern. I know that seems ridiculously simple and like common sense to to all you guys out there, but I guess what I'm going to be talking about is kind of the subtle steps in between these three main steps. And as I kind of babble on about this stuff, just kind of repeat to yourself this little mantra of get the right intern, give them the right experience, and repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat, just like the shampoo bottle says. So let's jump into this thing. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here's our kind of mandatory background spiel on the programming we do. I think as I kind of talk about our different programs, you'll figure out the context and the programs you work on, and that'll kind of clue you in on why I go after the specific interns that I do to work on our project. So we're doing a tree inventory with DPW. That's Department of Public Works for our city, and we're doing a comprehensive inventory. We're trying to of all the trees in Baton Rouge. We have Plant Smart events. That's our education and outreach component where we talk to groups about trees. We do educational stuff in schools. City Citrus is an open source citrus project. That's where we're establishing trees that are designed to be grazed on by anyone. The fruit is shared. So we identify places to put trees and community members to take care of those trees. Arbor Day celebration is our kind of our big luncheon, and is how we celebrate Arbor Day. Our Living Roadways program down here, we have 4,800 trees, I believe, along the interstates and highways that we planted many years ago, and we are in charge of keeping an eye on those, maintaining them, and making sure everything's working out okay with those. Our Neighborhoods program, I'm sure everybody is familiar with that, establishing trees in environmentally challenged areas. Green Paradise is our big fundraiser. It's our big party and gala every year. And then our Tree for All, we have a tree sale, but it's a tree sale, but that's really more of an education outreach too, because we have tree experts on hand to talk to customers ad nauseum about where to put the right tree for the right space, and we really try to drive that home with that tree sale. So I'm sure the gears are turning. You guys can already kind of envision lots of intern opportunities. So get the right intern. Be very decisive about what you're going to be using these interns for. Keep your specific projects in mind. Don't just understand what projects you need help with, but what specifically are you going to be having these interns do? And that's all going to go into the dialogue you have with the intern or a faculty member when you're recruiting these. In our experience, you tend to get what you pay for. So it's hard to get a free intern. So find some money somewhere. If you can get a grant to pay for an intern all summer, that's great. One thing I've kind of been doing is building funding into individual programs to hire an intern. And you're just hiring them for a short period of time. That's okay. Students are used to working irregular schedules, so maybe you only have them for a semester, or maybe you only have them for 3 months. If you're upfront with them about that, they're totally cool with it. Review their resumes and look at their bodies of work. As you're going through hopefully the big stack of resumes you get after you fill out the job announcement, consider the jobs not only that they'd be good at for the project you're working on, but what else can you use these interns for? What else could they contribute to in the downtime or while you're working on other stuff? And then the interview process, I think, is really important. If at all possible, try to get a face-to-face with these kids. You learn a lot about people when you have that face-to-face interview, how they conduct and present themselves. The interview is also a time where you can speak very candidly with them about the experience you're going to give them. And that's kind of how I couch it and phrase it. I say, I described it in the experience that Baton Rouge Green is going to be delivering. Don't be afraid to sell your nonprofit or your organization. They're attracted to you for some reason, or they would not have answered the job announcement. So definitely sell the experience that you're going to give them. So we're still in the lathering process of getting the right intern here. This is something that I did just kind of automatically. Is basically we're lucky. We've got two great universities right here in Baton Rouge that have professional programs that contribute directly to the kind of work that our mission dictates we do. So at LSU has a forestry program, a Department of Landscape Architecture, and a horticulture department. Southern University has an urban forestry program, and all of these programs are nationally acclaimed, nationally accredited. So I tend to high grade interns from landscape architecture and urban forestry, and both those programs, well, landscape architecture has a master's program, and fortunately the urban forestry program has a master's and a doctoral program. So I've worked with interns at undergrad, graduate, and postgraduate, and I've had great experiences with all of them. But you have to kind of tailor what you have each intern do according to what they already know from school. Building the relationships with the faculty or department heads of the programs is key, and I can't stress this enough. I was fortunate enough to go to LSU, so obviously there was professors there that I tended to get along with, and we've stayed in touch since I've graduated. And those guys are excellent sources for interns. I mean, even if they've got an intern that's just bored and needs something to do, or they've got a student with too much time in their hands, they'll throw them my way just for a little busy work, which is very helpful. We're also lucky that we have faculty and department heads from Southern that happen to sit on our board of directors. So if you have a board of directors, try and get someone from your educational facilities to sit on that board if it's applicable to your mission. It really helps in funneling interns into you because you build up this relationship, and they know you, and they know the kind of work you're doing. Take them to lunch, call them, email them, and just try to be friends with them. The most productive relationships are the ones where you're go have a couple of beers and discuss what you really need these interns to do. So when we're recruiting interns, we really try to look at what applicable skills they're bringing in. So for me, I try to get an intern that doesn't have too much experience, but also doesn't have too little experience. So by that I mean, I want to teach you something. I want the intern to learn something, so they have this kind of light bulb moment and they have a good time. They're not bored. But if they don't have enough experience, then I'm teaching them everything. So you try to, personally, I try to get kids before they go on to for landscape architecture, I'll grab them before they go off to work for the big firm. For kids in the urban forestry program, I'll try and grab them even when they're first or second year, but maybe before they go off and do this long stint with the Forest Service. Check out their maturity level. This is a case-by-case basis. You kind of know what your jobs and programs entail, how much interaction they're going to have with the public, and how critical their job is. So that's something just to consider, but that kind of varies by student. Definitely anticipate the limitations that these kids have. They're going to have crazy schedules, limited skill sets. You're going to develop the professional maturity in the office, and a lot of times this is their first real-world experience. I mean, that's what an internship is learning how to act professionally. So usually if you kind of anticipate these limitations, you'll be pleasantly surprised when they exceed your expectations. So while I'm recruiting these kids at any given time, I'm just kind of rolling through my different projects, interviewing them, thinking of where I can plug them in, or I've got a specific project that I've built funding into, and I'm going after a specific skill set with that intern. So here we've gotten to the step 2, the rinse phase of our shampoo instructions. Applicable experience. this is the experience that you're providing them. This is what they're going to put on their resume. This is what they're going to talk about in interviews, how they helped out, what they contributed to. So when you're thinking of how to provide this experience and describe it to the faculty and describe it to the interns, what are you going to give them? What does your mission allow you to do? What do your programs allow you to do that's applicable to these professional fields where you're recruiting these interns from school? Students in professional programs rely on these internships. This is where they gain their real-world experience. So, and I'm about half the interns we get, this is their first job ever. I mean, besides cutting grass or babysitting, this is the first time they've done anything. And sometimes you have to set the example. They just don't have anything else to fall back on. So definitely remember that. Delineate every aspect of your programming into the potential skill sets that they're going to learn. So go through your programming, break down all those steps you do, like if you're doing a planting or if you're putting together an educational seminar, what are all the things you do leading up to that? Break it down. What's really time consuming? What seems kind of menial to you? That's great intern work. I know if you explain to them why it's important, they master this skill, they're happy to do it, and they kind of understand that's part of the process. And number 4 here, what sort of experience can your group offer that others cannot? So that's something that I deal with a lot because I'm in competition with basically the U.S. Forest Service and large landscape architecture firms for interns. So know what they're going to be doing at those other firms. What can you give them that they might not get there? How do you entice them to come work for a nonprofit or a government organization? So like landscape architecture students, I'll hire an intern with less experience usually, and I'll give them a lot of responsibility. They will get a tons of hands-on experience. They'll be out there. They'll directly assist me with a lot of stuff that they wouldn't be doing at a firm. For the forestry students, we do a lot of stuff with them. Basically, they're getting a lot of hands-on experience they're not getting in school. They're getting a lot of tree identification they might not get in school. They're kind of setting the table for all this stuff they're going to learn later. So when they do show up for their first job with the Forest Service or another forestry company, they don't have to learn the basic stuff because we've already taught them how to measure trees and crews and inventory and ID and stuff like that. And I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of these kids don't know how to plant a tree. Don't ever underestimate how important it is teaching young people how to plant stuff, the right places to plant things, and just hands-on time with plant materials is just not something that's taught in schools anymore. So it's pretty important. And you know, they seem to get a big kick out of it too. So I'm going to show you a little bit now what we do exactly with our interns and our programs. So for like our City Citrus and our Neighborhoods program, basically these are places where we're taking a site with no or little trees and we're putting trees on it. And there's usually some programming of that site that we kind of have to develop. So these are great to have interns help out with because they can see the process, you know, from start to finish. And like on this site right here, this is one of our City Citrus sites. I mean, they helped me with site assessment, figuring out where to put the trees, doing the drawings, the graphics, and then it all kind of culminates with this mass planting. And here are my interns over here. They're actually leading the instruction. They're telling people how to plant. They're showing them the correct way to plant the trees. I got a couple more pictures of this project. You know, if they have skills in AutoCAD or graphic design, if it's a project like this, let them do it. You know, make sure you have time there to edit it. But on this one site, I mean, they helped us with the AutoCAD. This was one of our bigger City Citrus sites. We had a lot of site prep on this, a lot of loosening the soil and things like that. They helped me lay it all out, and then we had an obscene amount of volunteers show up that day, and we basically broke up into little groups where every intern was in charge of a little group of planters, and that really helps because I'm sure on these volunteer events, if you've ever done them, you know how thin you can be spread. Our Living Roadways program, we're developing a new expansion site. There's not a lot of wiggle room for inaccuracy, and there's consequences if we get stuff in the wrong place when we're working next to interstate. So maybe the interns don't get to do AutoCAD on this, but they're definitely out there helping me take field measurements. We're talking about where we're putting things and why we can't put things in certain places, view sheds, and development code that kind of prevents us from planting trees in certain areas. So you're always having a dialogue of why you're doing stuff, and even though maybe they're not working on this technical drawing, they're helping out, and they understand what's going on with the project. Our Living Roadways program in general, I would love, I'm kind of batting around the idea with one of the professors of getting some kind of research project going, not only to using our municipal inventory, but to inventory the trees, but to kind of track some of the ecological benefits that just our trees are doing out there. So also recognize the potential of some of your projects and chat that up with professors. Research. I love research. I really do. I'm not just saying that. I never have time to do it. This is something that interns are great at, especially if they've had any kind of research methodology class. Look for that in their resume or the class they've taken. Anyone with a master's, anyone working on their PhD, usually really good at research. I had a PhD student working for me just because he wanted to get his hands a little bit dirty and wanted to get some real-world experience to help pad his resume. He happened to teach classes already. He was a teaching assistant, but he was really good at research, and we're developing a citizen forester program. So I had him look at precedents, look at other programs, and then we kind of sat down and knocked out a syllabus and a curriculum based on some of his experiences and the research, what he found, what other people doing, when you bring into the layers of what Baton Rouge Green wants its citizen forester program to look like. I had a landscape architecture student work on this. We were developing tree tags for a tree sale, and we wanted this really graphical tree tag that would give this pertinent information about the specific trees rapidly to a consumer, so they'd know where to plant it, what kind of wildlife it attracted, some kind of do's and don'ts, some landscape values like spring color, fall color, things like that were built into these cards, and it looked pretty good. And the intern was fantastic because I could have her cross-referencing all these plant manuals that I didn't feel like going through. I could just edit her work. I could insert my local observations, my local knowledge of plants, kind of fine-tune what she had cross-referenced in a bunch of other plant manuals. And we had these cards, and the graphics on them were coming out pretty sharp, so that just turned into a tree guide. So, work with them, edit stuff, and you'll be surprised at what pops out of some of these things. If you guys are as busy as I am, you don't have time to comb through a bunch of manuals and cross-reference everything. That's perfect work for an intern. Just make sure you oversee and edit their work. If an intern knows about something, let them talk about it by all means. Our Plant Smart stuff, that's where we go out and talk to communities. We have different lecturers talk about different aspects of trees and urban tree care and things like that. We were talking about where to plant trees, the right tree in the right place, and kind of bringing in some landscape aesthetic considerations. Our landscape architecture interns are perfect for that. That's one less PowerPoint you have to make. If you let them make the PowerPoint, you let them present it, you can be working on your other stuff. You're not bogged down putting slides together. Just absolutely make sure you have them rehearse with you for sure. You're teaching them how to professionally present themselves, and you're kind of tweaking their presentation, not only the PowerPoint, but kind of how they get that context across and how they get those core concepts across. Just make sure you're also available to answer technical questions after they give the conversation. Our Tree for All, that's that tree sale where we really talk to people about plants. That's a great place for horticulture students, forestry students, urban forestry students, landscape architecture students to show off their freshly acquired plant knowledge. let them babble on about trees and plants. You can be helping out with other stuff too. It's a great place. We really like having them talk to our customers there. Our tree inventory, this thing is pure urban forestry. So if you've got an urban forestry student, they're probably really skilled in research methodology. They've done a lot of Forest Service studies, but I don't know how much actual hands-on inventorying they've done. So it's great to get those urban forestry students out there working with tree identification, working with some of the new technologies to inventory. They start to appreciate what iTree actually does, not just these great, ecological and economic numbers it spits out, but how it actually, when you start manipulating the databases and they start to figure out how iTree actually works, that definitely helps them out, and it helps them put together their own research projects in the future. With our landscape architecture students, this goes right into planning, development. They get to see firsthand the atrocities committed on the root-based and basal flares by tree grades and all these other things that landscape architects are always forcing into the urban environment. So right now I've got one intern working on this. He's actually a landscape architecture student. He just needed to kill some time, pad his resume a little bit. He's already done his internship with a big firm. He's rounding out his resume. He's got a light schedule, and he's making a little bit of money too. So at the bottom here, these have been on a lot of these step 2 slides. Train them up, cut them loose, padding the resume. That's kind of the 3 skill levels I typically get an intern at. I either have to train them up. Some of them I can just cut loose on certain projects. Some of them have way too much experience. They're just rounding out their resume. This is almost like an extracurricular activity they did in high school to get into the good college. They're just rounding out their resume before they go apply for a big firm or for the Forest Service. They want to show they have some hands-on experience, something they might not have gotten from their college curriculum. Step 3, repeat. That's it. No explanation necessary. When you have all the trees planted in your city that you need, you might not need any more interns. So you've found the right intern. You gave the intern a really good experience. Repeat it with the next intern. It's that simple. So these are some caveats, I guess, or tips or tricks that we've learned at Baton Rouge Green. Keep in mind you're dealing with students and young people. Bend but don't break. They're going to have wacky schedules, family events, holidays, vacations. The professor is going to tell them they need to go to another city to study something. A professor is going to offer them a teaching gig. So their schedules are going to be crazy. Be firm. You don't want interns showing up late a lot, but you want to be cool. So bend basically, but don't break. Treat these kids professionally if you want them to act professional. This is important to me because, like I said before, for a lot of these kids, it's their first real job, and it's their first exposure to a nonprofit. And a lot of times, it's their first exposure to this kind of natural resource industry that I love working in. So I don't want them to get a bad flavor for this industry or for nonprofits in their mouth. So if you want them to act professionally, treat professionally, you're setting the example for how these kids think they're supposed to act in other offices. Don't expect perfection. Expect competence and improvement. Just get used to editing everything they're going to be doing. Get used to overseeing everything they're going to be doing. I guess I would say don't ever expect a task to be done perfectly by an intern if it's your job to do that task perfectly. That's how they learn. They learn by making mistakes. Correct the mistakes. A good intern won't make the same mistake over and over again. A good intern will make the mistake once, get better, and move on. And last but not least, good intern experiences mean more interns from the same sources. This is key. These kids talk. Word of mouth goes so far. You guys might remember back when you were in school, when everyone was talking about their internship. Everyone knew kind of what to expect walking into that internship, whether it was a good one or a bad one, based on what the upperclassmen had told them. So these kids talk to their professors see what they're doing. A lot of times they'll put something they worked on with you in their portfolio or in their resume. So if they have a good positive experience, they're going to tell their peers about it. They're going to tell professors about it. It's going to be a lot easier to get these interns back. And
Hello, Robert.
all that goes to getting them at that right experience level for your programming. Yes.
Oh, good. There's just a little bit of delay. You're good.
Can you hear me, Sarah?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
We're gonna wrap up.
And that
shortly.
was, I think that was the last slide anyway.
Great.
Yep. So questions. Oops.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that presentation. If you have questions for Robert, please type them in the chat box on your GoToWebinar control panel. His contact is up here as well. We had a question come in that we're going to also open up the line to have Elise join on. I know we lost the connection for a little bit, but I think you're back. Are you there too, Elise?
I'm back.
Awesome. Great. So this question is for both of you. And the question is, how much do you determine how you pay your interns? So, Robert, you can answer first.
I know what other entry-level positions are being paid at firms, and I kind of try and stick with that. I think we're paying our kids anywhere from 10 to 15 bucks an hour. Maybe we're doing 12. I remember I like balked at it, but my boss told me I was being unreasonable. So look at what they're making at other internships and try and get close to that. That's what I would say.
I will agree with that, and I agree with that, and that's pretty much the range we use as well. And the other thing that we do with our interns is set aside a certain amount of money for professional development for them. So over the course of the semester, they are supposed to identify one professional development opportunity, and we will pay for it for them.
Awesome. Speaking of personal growth, Robert, your presentation went really into depth on how what to expect from interns and how to kind of measure their success. Can you talk a little bit more about what you would use as typical measures of their success? So you said competence is really important, and you discussed the three levels at which you want to manage interns. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
I like to see them kind of grow legs and run with tasks on their own. So we'll go out and they'll start out assisting me with things. Then we'll try to have them do some things on their own, and they'll get it wrong a little bit. And usually about the time they're moving on, they're really good at their jobs. And you give them a task. You don't have to lay it all out for them. They just do it. They do it the way you want it, or they bring you a couple of versions of it and let you pick which one you like, or there's minor edits. That's kind of how I measure the success, is that they've absorbed what we're teaching them, and they just kind of run with it on their own.
Awesome. And just one last question for both of you as we wrap up here. We talked about how some of the internships and, at least in your case, service learning projects last, and how that time frame kind of varies. Is there any kind of average time frame that you would assign to a particular project or a particular internship? Are there like kind of standards that you each have for those?
I would say go ahead, Robert.
That's okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for our internships, we work on a 15-week cycle that matches pretty much the trajectory of the academic year. And then for the service learning projects, it really depends on what's in the syllabus, so how much time the faculty member wants to work on a project versus, and that's kind of what dictates how we design a specific project for a class. So if it's a full semester class it's 15 weeks. If it's just a 2-week project, then we'll scale the project depending on that.
So about every other year, we're able to get a grant that can fund a full-time intern, I think, for half a year or something like that. And then we'll fly a general job resume that will describe their duties, and we'll have them work on several projects. But a lot of the way we fulfill our intern needs throughout the years, these kind of ad hoc interns, where I've got some funding built into the individual programs, and at that point, it's just matching up an intern with the right experience and a flexible schedule that wants to come work with us. And a lot of times, if you talk to them and you tell them that, hey, we're only doing this for a month, but it's going to be a really good experience for you. This is what you can put in your portfolio when we're done, and they have the time to do it with school, they're happy to do it. So that's one thing we do is we definitely utilize interns during the school year as well as the summer. So if you have the funding, you can do it for a set time, but others, it's just project by project.
Awesome. Well, that concludes this session on creating win-win internships. Thank you both to our presenters, Elise and Robert, for showing us how to attract and retain dedicated interns. This recorded session and accompanying resource list will be posted on our web page. It will be password protected for current member access only. Just use you'll be emailed a different. Well, you can use this. We'll keep this password, the same password Memoriam 10 that you used to log in today to access the session. You'll be notified when it's posted. Please just take a minute to answer the survey questions that appear at the close of the session. And again, thanks to our presenters. Make sure that you join us next month where we talk about the power of regional action. We're going to be discussing regional urban forest councils and their role in sustainably coordinating healthy urban forestry efforts within a state. So thanks, Elise and Robert. Have a great rest of your day.
Muted.